40 people stood on the frozen shore of Grand Traverse Bay, phones held high, recording a teenage boy drowning in ice water. Not one of them jumped in. Not the off-duty paramedic trained in ice rescue. Not the marina supervisor with rescue equipment 200 feet away. Not the teacher who'd taught the boy in her classroom 2 years ago. They all had reasons. Good reasons. Safe reasons. And then Sarah Bennett arrived. She was 24 years old. Homeless. Hadn't eaten a full meal in 3 days. Was living in a 2004 Honda Civic with a cracked windshield and 187,000 miles. Had lost her nursing license 3 years ago when a powerful doctor destroyed her career to cover his own mistake. She had every reason to keep walking. She had nothing left to give, but she was still an Army medic. And Army medics don't leave casualties behind, even when they're the only one willing to act. What happened in the next 11 minutes would trigger the largest Hells Angels mobilization Northern Michigan had ever seen. And the doctor who thought he'd buried Sarah Bennett forever? He was about to learn that some debts can't be erased. Stories like Sarah's used to be common. Neighbors helping neighbors, communities protecting their own. Now, everyone just films. Please subscribe and share this to remind people what courage actually looks like. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and whether your community would have stood on shore or jumped in. Now here's what happened when those 40 phones started recording. 6 hours earlier. Saturday morning, January 27th. 8:47 a.m. Sarah woke up in the back seat of her Honda Civic with frost on the inside of the windows. Her breath came out in white clouds. The sleeping bag she'd gotten from a church donation bin 3 months ago wasn't rated for Michigan winter. Wasn't rated for anything, really. She was so cold her fingers had gone numb. Outside the car, the temperature read -9 degrees. Inside, maybe 20. Still cold enough to kill if you stayed too long. Sarah sat up slowly. Every muscle ached. Sleeping in a car does that. 3 years of it, and your body starts to break down in ways you don't notice until you try to move. She'd parked in the North Point Beach lot overnight. Public parking. No enforcement in winter. And close enough to the public restroom that she could walk there once it opened at 6 a.m. But she'd overslept. The library opened at 9 a.m. on Saturdays. She had 12 minutes to get ready. Sarah pulled on her jeans over the sweatpants she'd slept in. Layering. That's how you survive Michigan winter in a car. Every piece of clothing you own, all at once. Her phone, cracked iPhone 7, battery at 4%, showed 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize. Probably bill collectors. She'd stopped answering those 2 years ago. She grabbed her backpack. Inside, change of clothes, toothbrush, deodorant, hairbrush. The basics. Everything else she owned was in the trunk, which wasn't much. The walk to the public restroom was 50 yards. Might as well have been 50 miles in this cold. Sarah's breath burned in her lungs. The wind coming off the bay cut through her jacket like it wasn't there. Because it basically wasn't. Army surplus from a thrift store. Torn lining. Broken zipper. She made it to the restroom. The door was unlocked. Small mercy. Inside, she brushed her teeth in cold water, washed her face, changed her shirt, put on deodorant, brushed her hair and pulled it into a ponytail, looked at herself in the mirror. 24 years old, looking closer to 40. Dark circles under her eyes. Cheekbones too prominent from not eating enough. skin pale from 3 years of not seeing sunlight without searching for a place to sleep first. But her eyes were the worst part. They were the eyes of someone who'd stopped expecting good things. Sarah touched the small bulge in her jeans pocket. The Army medic badge. Bronze, 2 inches across. From basic training 6 years ago, she carried it everywhere. Every single day. It was the only proof she'd ever mattered. She left the restroom at 8:52 a.m., 8 minutes to get to the library before it opened. The walk took her past Riverside Church. Beautiful building. Stone facade. Stained glass windows. Sign out front. All are welcome. Sarah had tried that welcome once, 4 months ago. She'd gone to their Sunday service, sat in the back, stayed quiet, just wanted to be warm for an hour, to be around people who weren't afraid of her. After the service, she'd approached the church secretary, asked if they knew about any shelters with space. The woman, 50s, wearing a cross necklace, kind face that turned cold fast, had looked at Sarah like she was a problem to solve. "We have a homeless outreach program," the woman said, "but it's for people actively trying to improve their situation. Are you looking for work? Have you applied anywhere?" Sarah had swallowed. "I'm a nurse. I lost my license. I'm trying to get it reinstated, but, well, that's the problem, isn't it? You need to take responsibility for your choices. The Bible says God helps those who help themselves." Sarah had left. She hadn't been back. Now, walking past that same church in -9-degree weather, Sarah felt the same thing she'd felt that day. Invisible. Not just unseen. Erased. The library opened at 9 a.m. Sarah was waiting at the door. She spent the next 8 hours the same way she spent every day. Reading. Staying warm. Charging her phone at the public outlet, using the bathroom, trying not to make eye contact with anyone who might recognize her. Because some people did recognize her. Traverse City wasn't that big. And 3 years ago, Sarah Bennett had been someone. Army veteran. Recent nursing grad. Working at Traverse City Memorial Hospital. Future ahead of her. Then Dr. David Hastings happened. Sarah tried not to think about it, but sitting in the library with medical journals she couldn't use, it was hard not to remember. October 14th, 2021. Mark Brennan, 54 years old. Came to the ER at 11:30 p.m. complaining of chest pain. Sarah had been his nurse, had taken his vitals, had documented everything. Blood pressure elevated. Diaphoresis. Pain radiating to left arm. Classic heart attack presentation. She'd told Dr. Hastings. Recommended an EKG. Hastings had looked at the chart for 30 seconds. Said it was anxiety. Told Sarah to give the patient an Ativan and send him home. Sarah had documented her concerns. Had written in the chart, "Nursing assessment suggests cardiac event. Recommend EKG and troponin levels." Hastings had overruled her. Sent Mark Brennan home. 6 hours later, Mark Brennan died of a massive heart attack in his living room. His wife found him at 6 a.m. The family sued. The hospital settled for $850,000. And Dr. Hastings, decorated Army colonel, chief of emergency medicine, county medical board member, blamed Sarah. He'd testified that Sarah gave him incorrect patient history, that she told him the chest pain was just stress, that she appeared impaired on duty, that he smelled alcohol on her breath. All lies. But who was the medical board going to believe? A decorated doctor with 20 years' experience, or a 21-year-old nurse fresh out of school? Sarah's license was revoked in March 2022. She lost her job, lost her apartment, lost her car payment ability, lost her future. By June 2022, she was living in the Civic. And Dr. Hastings? He got a raise, bought a Tesla, lived in a $780,000 house on the bay, while Sarah froze in a parking lot. At 2:30 p.m., Sarah's stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. A half sandwich she'd found in a trash can outside Panera. She had $3.47 in her checking account. Not enough for a meal. Not enough for anything. She ignored the hunger. She'd gotten good at that. At 5 p.m., the library announced it would close in 30 minutes. Sarah gathered her things, charged her phone to 18%, better than 4. Stepped outside into darkness and cold that felt like a physical attack. The walk back to her car was 3 blocks. She took the lakefront path. Longer, but scenic, and sometimes seeing the water helped. Reminded her that the world was bigger than a car and a parking lot. That's when she heard the sirens. Multiple emergency vehicles screaming past. Police, fire trucks, ambulances, all heading toward the waterfront. Sarah's medic training kicked in. Casualty event. Major emergency. She should keep walking. Should get to her car. Should stay warm. Should stay invisible. But her feet carried her toward the sirens. Toward North Point Beach. Toward the crowd. She pushed through people in winter coats. People with hats and gloves and scarves. People who'd never spent a night in a car wondering if they'd freeze to death. Nobody noticed her pushing through. They were all focused on their phones, recording something. Sarah reached the front of the crowd and saw a teenage boy, face down in the water, 45 feet from shore. Blue jacket spread around him, one shoe floating, ice broken all around him where he'd tried to climb out, and nobody, not one single person, was helping. Sarah's training took over. Male, late teens, submerged approximately 4 minutes based on crowd formation. Water temperature maybe 34 degrees. Lips dark purple. No movement. Stage 3 hypothermia. Core temp dropping fast. 6 minutes total equals death. She scanned the crowd. Saw a man in a marina supervisor jacket, standing on the dock, arms crossed, phone to his ear, talking to someone. Saw a younger guy in EMT gear, on his phone too, calling 911 probably, but not moving toward the water. Saw a woman, Mrs. Holbrook, Sarah's old biology teacher, holding her phone up, recording. 40 people, not one in the water. Sarah looked at the boy, looked at the crowd, looked at her hands. These hands had saved lives in basic training drills, had performed CPR on practice dummies, had learned trauma medicine from combat medics who'd seen war. These hands hadn't saved anyone in 3 years, but they remembered how. Sarah dropped her backpack. Everything she owned hit the frozen ground. People near her flinched, moved away, like her poverty might be contagious. Sarah's hands went to her pocket. Found the Army medic badge. The one thing that still meant something. She pinned it inside her jeans pocket. If I die out there, at least they'll know I tried. She pulled off her boots, tossed her jacket, kept her thermal shirt and jeans. "Ma'am, don't," a man's voice behind her. "The rescue team is 3 minutes away." Sarah didn't answer, didn't look back. She stepped onto the ice. The surface groaned under her weight. 120 pounds spread over 2 feet. It held. Barely. Sarah took another step. Her socks immediately soaked through from melted ice. The cold shot through her feet like electricity. "Someone stop her!" a woman shouted. But nobody did. They just kept filming. Sarah tested each step. 5 feet. 10. The ice cracked beneath her. Spiderweb patterns spreading out. The sound like gunfire. 15 feet. 20. Her heart hammered. every instinct screaming to turn back, to get off this ice before it killed her. But the boy was 30 feet ahead, and he had maybe 2 minutes left. 25 feet. 30. The cold was coming up through her feet, up her legs, into her core. Her teeth started chattering. 35 feet. 40. Almost there. The ice gave way. Sarah went through waist deep. The water wasn't wet, it was knives, stabbing into every inch of skin. Her lungs seized. Her heart stuttered. Her vision went white. She gasped, choked, nearly went under. But she was close enough now, close enough to reach him. Sarah grabbed the boy's jacket collar, flipped him face up. His eyes were half open, rolled back, lips not just purple, black, blue-black, the color of death. She checked his neck for pulse. Nothing. No breathing. No heartbeat. Core temperature maybe 80 degrees. Clinically dead, but not irreversibly dead. Not yet. Sarah got one arm across his chest, started the side stroke kick. Combat life-saving. They'd drilled it in basic. Never thought she'd use it. Back toward shore. The ice kept breaking under their combined weight. She used her free elbow to smash through, creating a path. Her muscles were shutting down. The cold was too much, too fast. Hypothermia creeping into her own core now. 20 feet from shore, something hit the water next to her. A rope. Someone, finally, was helping. Sarah grabbed it with numb fingers, held the boy against her chest with her other arm. Someone pulled. Hard. They dragged both of them through the broken ice, through the freezing water, toward the beach. Sarah's knees hit sand, hands reached down, pulled the boy onto solid ground. Sarah crawled after him, fell onto the snow, shaking so hard she couldn't stand. The boy wasn't breathing. No pulse. Dying. Sarah's hands moved on autopilot. 21 years old when she lost her license. But 6 years of training don't disappear. She ripped his jacket open, pulled off his soaked hockey jersey. Number 19, Traverse City West. His skin was white as paper, fingers blue-black at the tips. "What is she doing?" someone in the crowd yelled. Sarah ignored them, stripped his wet jeans off, his shoes, socks, everything. Then she pulled off her own thermal shirt. The crowd gasped. Down to her sports bra in negative 12-degree air, Sarah wrapped the boy in her jacket, grabbed her sleeping bag from the backpack someone had brought over, wrapped him in that, then lay down next to him, chest to chest, skin to skin. Gave him her warmth. The only thing she had left to give. "She's trying to warm him with her body," someone whispered. "In this cold, they'll both die." Maybe. But Sarah was an army medic, and army medics don't abandon casualties. She checked his pulse. Nothing. Started rescue breathing. 2 breaths every 30 seconds. Keep oxygen moving to the brain. Her own core temperature was dropping. Fast. 98 degrees. 96. 93. The shivering became violent, her vision blurred, but she held on. 1 minute, 2 minutes. The boy's skin felt like ice against hers, but slowly, degree by degree, she felt it change. His temp creeping up. 81, 82, 3 minutes, 4. Sarah's lips turned blue. Her hands shook so badly she could barely maintain contact. "Someone needs to pull her off," a man said. "She's dying." "Don't touch her," another voice said. "She knows what she's doing." Sarah didn't know if that was true. She just knew she couldn't stop. 5 minutes? 6. The boy's temperature hit 84 degrees. His pupils constricted slightly. Brainstem responding. Still no pulse, still not breathing on his own. 7 minutes. Sarah's core temperature hit 90 degrees. Dangerously hypothermic. Her thoughts starting to fragment. She focused on the boy's face. Young. 17, maybe. Freckles. Sandy blonde hair frozen to his forehead like ice crystals. Somebody's son. Somebody's whole world. 8 minutes. The boy's chest jerked. Once. Sarah checked his pulse. There. Faint, but there. He's got a pulse, she tried to shout. It came out as a whisper. 9 minutes. His breathing started. Shallow. Gasping. But breathing. 10 minutes. Sirens arriving. Paramedics running across the sand. Ma'am, let go. We'll take him. Sarah's fingers wouldn't release, locked in place from the cold. Ma'am, you need to let go. A paramedic gently pried her hands away, wrapped her in a blanket. Another paramedic checked the boy's vitals. Pulse 47, breathing shallow, core temp approximately 85. He's coming back. Sarah collapsed, hypothermic, shaking, aware enough to see them load the boy onto a gurney. Alive. She'd done it. 11 minutes. Then everything went black. Sarah woke in an ambulance, wrapped in warming blankets, IV in her arm, heart monitor beeping. Across from her, the boy was on another gurney. Oxygen mask. More IVs. Paramedics working. But alive. What's your name? A paramedic asked Sarah. Sarah. Sarah Bennett. You family? No. Then why? Sarah looked at the boy. At this stranger she'd nearly died for. Because no one else did. The paramedic followed her gaze to her soaked jeans draped over the bench, to the Army medic badge pinned to the pocket. You kept that badge all this time? Sarah's voice was barely there. It's who I am. At Traverse City Memorial Hospital, they wheeled Sarah into the ER. The same ER where she'd worked 3 years ago. The same hallways she'd walked as a nurse. Now she was here as a patient. A homeless patient. The nurse checking her in was young. Maybe 26. Sarah didn't recognize her. Small mercy. Name? Sarah Bennett. The nurse typed, paused, looked at the screen, looked at Sarah. You were a nurse here? Not a question. I was. What happened? Sarah closed her eyes. Dr. Hastings happened. The nurse's expression shifted. Something flickered across her face. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. I'm sorry, the nurse said quietly. I've heard stories. Sarah was too tired to ask what stories. Too cold to care. They moved her to a bay, hooked her up to monitors, wrapped her in heated blankets, started IV fluids. Her core temperature was 91 degrees. Dangerous. Another hour, and she might not have made it. The boy? Sarah asked. Stable, the nurse said. You saved his life. The paramedics said another 2 minutes, and he would have been gone. Sarah nodded, closed her eyes. She'd saved a life. For the first time in 3 years, she'd done what she was trained to do. It felt like remembering how to breathe. In the trauma bay next door, Jake Morrison was surrounded by doctors. Warming blankets, heat lamps, IV fluids run through warmers. Every intervention to bring his core temperature back up slowly. Too fast, and his heart would stop. Rewarming shock. Common in severe hypothermia. Dr. Ellen Rodriguez stood over him, watching the monitors. 48 years old. Chief of Emergency Medicine since Dr. Hastings had been arrested. She'd been the one to replace him. Had spent 3 years cleaning up the culture of fear he'd created. Core temp 86 degrees and climbing, a resident said. Heart rate stable at 52, breathing on his own. Dr. Rodriguez nodded. Keep monitoring. If temp rises more than 1 degree every 30 minutes, slow the warming. She looked at Jake's face. This kid who'd been dead 11 minutes ago. Sarah Bennett had done this. The nurse Hastings destroyed. Dr. Rodriguez had reviewed Sarah's case file when she took over. Had seen the nursing notes. The documentation. The recommendations Sarah made that Hastings ignored. Sarah had been right. Hastings had been wrong. And Sarah lost everything for telling the truth. Now she'd saved a stranger's son with nothing but her own body heat and training she shouldn't have remembered after 3 years of homelessness. Dr. Rodriguez made a decision. She walked to Sarah's bay, pulled the curtain aside. Sarah looked up, eyes red, shivering despite the heated blankets. Ms. Bennett, Dr. Rodriguez said. I'm Dr. Rodriguez. I replaced Dr. Hastings as Chief of Emergency Medicine 2 months ago. Sarah's face went carefully blank, defensive. I reviewed your case file, Dr. Rodriguez continued. I know what happened. I know what he did to you. And I want you to know it was wrong. You were right about Mark Brennan. Hastings was wrong, and he destroyed your career to hide his mistake. Sarah's lip trembled. She bit down on it. Hard. I can't undo what happened, Dr. Rodriguez said. But I can tell you that you just performed one of the most remarkable field rescues I've seen in 20 years of emergency medicine. Hypothermic rewarming using body heat. No equipment. In sub-zero temperatures. You saved that boy's life. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. You're still a medic, Dr. Rodriguez said. They took your license. They didn't take your skills. They didn't take who you are. Sarah couldn't speak, could only cry. Dr. Rodriguez put a hand on her shoulder. Get warm. Get treated. When you're ready, if you want help getting your license reinstated, you call me. She handed Sarah a business card. Then she left Sarah alone with her tears. Rick Morrison got the call at 3:47 p.m. He was at the clubhouse. Road captain meeting, planning a charity ride for March. His phone rang. Unknown number. Yeah? Mr. Morrison? This is Traverse City Memorial Hospital. Your son Jake was brought in by ambulance. He's stable, but... Rick didn't hear the rest. Was on his bike in 30 seconds. The hospital was 6 miles away. Rick covered it in 4 minutes. Parked in the ambulance bay. Ran inside. Found the ER desk. Jake Morrison. Where is he? The clerk checked. Trauma Bay 2. But sir, you can't. Rick was already moving. Through the double doors. Down the hallway. Following the signs. He found Jake behind a curtain. Surrounded by equipment. Oxygen mask over his face. But awake. Alive. Rick's knees nearly buckled. He walked to the bed, grabbed Jake's hand. His son's hand was cold. So cold. Dad, Jake whispered under the mask. I'm here. I'm right here. A doctor appeared. Dr. Rodriguez. She introduced herself, explained what happened. Your son fell through ice at North Point Beach. He was submerged approximately 4 minutes. Core temperature dropped to 80 degrees. He was clinically dead when he reached shore. Rick's hand tightened on Jake's. A woman pulled him out, went into the water when approximately 40 bystanders stood watching. She performed hypothermic rewarming for 11 minutes using her own body heat. Saved his life. Rick looked at the doctor. Where is she? Next bay. being treated for hypothermia herself. She nearly died saving your son." Rick stood, looked at Jake. "I'll be right back." He walked to the next bay, pulled the curtain aside. A young woman lay on the gurney, 24 maybe. Thin, too thin, dark circles under her eyes, wearing hospital scrubs because her own clothes were soaked. She looked up when Rick entered. Flinched. Rick realized he must look terrifying. 6'3", leather jacket, tattoos, road captain patch visible. He made himself smaller, sat down in the chair next to the bed, put his hands where she could see them. "You pulled my son out," he said, gentle as he could. Sarah nodded, didn't speak. "The doctor said you were in the water. Said you used your own body to warm him. Said you nearly died." Sarah's voice was barely there. "He needed help. 40 people were there. I know. None of them helped. I know." Rick looked at this young woman, this stranger who'd saved his son's life. "What's your name?" "Sarah. Sarah Bennett." "Sarah." Rick extended his hand. "I'm Rick. My brothers call me Reaper. And I need you to understand something. You saved my son's life. That means I'm in your debt. Blood debt. You understand? Whatever you need, anything you tell me, and it's done." Sarah looked at his hand, then at his face. She wasn't reaching for it. Rick understood. Someone had hurt her, made her afraid of men's hands. He lowered his hand. Didn't push. "I don't need anything," Sarah said. "Everyone needs something." Sarah laughed. Bitter. Broken. "You can't help me. Try me." She looked at him for a long moment, deciding. Then she told him. Everything. Dr. David Hastings, the patient who died. The falsified records, the medical board testimony claiming she was drunk on duty, the $850,000 settlement that blamed her, the revoked license, the 1,095 days living in her car. Rick listened without interrupting, his jaw getting tighter, his hands curling into fists. When Sarah finished, she said, "So you see, there's nothing you can do. Hastings is untouchable. He's chief of emergency medicine, county medical board member, decorated Army colonel. Who's going to believe a homeless woman over him?" Rick stood. "Nobody's untouchable," he said. "Give me 48 hours. You don't understand. I understand that you're a 24-year-old medic who got destroyed for telling the truth. I understand that a powerful man used his position to bury you. I understand that you've been invisible for 3 years while he got richer." Rick's voice was steady, calm. "And I understand that you just saved my son when everyone else was afraid. That makes you family. And we protect family." He pulled out his phone, dialed. 3 rings. "Ironside, it's Reaper." Marcus Webb's voice. "Brother, what's good?" "I need every patched member within 90 miles at the clubhouse. Tonight, 9 p.m. Pause. "What's happening?" "Someone saved Jake's life while 40 people filmed him dying. She's 24, homeless, former Army medic, former nurse. A doctor destroyed her career to cover his own malpractice. She's been living in a car for 3 years. "Say no more," Ironside said. "We're coming." Rick hung up, looked at Sarah. 48 hours, he said. "That's all I need." He walked out before she could argue. Rick made 4 more calls, same conversation each time. By 9 p.m. that night, 97 motorcycles filled the clubhouse parking lot. Traverse City, Chapter. 63 members. Petoskey Chapter. 58 members, 18 drove down. Cadillac Chapter. 49 members, 12 drove down. Gaylord Chapter. 47 members, 4 drove down. 97 total. Biggest single mobilization in northern Michigan. Hell's Angels history. Some rode 90 miles in sub-zero temperatures. Because a brother called. Rick stood at the front of the room. 97 men in their cuts watching him. He told them what happened. The ice, the drowning, the 40 people filming. Sarah going in. 11 minutes of body heat transfer. Jake alive because one homeless woman had more courage than everyone else combined. Then he told them about Hastings, about Sarah, about 1,095 days in a car. The room was silent when he finished. Then Hammer stood. Rick's uncle, 68 years old, founding member of the Traverse City chapter. "What do we need?" Hammer asked. "Evidence," Rick said. "Witnesses. Documentation. We build a case so solid that Hastings goes to prison and Sarah gets her license back." Ironside stood. "I'll lead investigation. Financial records, hospital complaints, pattern of behavior." Doc stood. Leonard Hayes, Vietnam medic. "I'll verify Sarah's story from a medical standpoint. Review the original case." Bite stood. "Digital footprint, emails, texts, anything electronic that proves the cover-up." Teach stood. "I'll work with Sarah. Help her document everything she remembers." Rick looked around the room, at brothers who'd shown up because he called, who'd ridden through freezing temperatures because someone needed help. "We meet back here in 24 hours, Rick said. "Bring proof, bring witnesses, bring the truth." Hammer spoke. "All in favor?" Silence for exactly 3 seconds. Then every single hand went up. Not one hesitation. 97 men voting to help a woman they'd never met. Because that's what brotherhood means. Because protecting the vulnerable is sacred. Because Sarah Bennett saved one of their own. And blood debt gets repaid. 24 hours after Rick's call, the clubhouse war room was packed. Documents covered every surface. Financial records, hospital complaint files, medical board minutes, laptops running analysis, a whiteboard filled with connections. 97 bikers stood waiting, silent, focused. Ironside walked to the front, ex-Detroit detective. 22 years on the force. Knew how to build cases that stuck. "Here's what we found," he said. He clicked a remote. A photo appeared on the screen behind him. Dr. David Lawrence Hastings. Professional headshot. White coat. American flag lapel pin. Confident smile. Age 51. Chief of Emergency Medicine. Salary $380,000 annually. Total assets $2.8 million. On paper, untouchable. Next slide. Decorated Army Colonel, 22 years Medical Corps, Rotary Club President since 2019, Church Deacon at First Presbyterian, County Medical Board member. Ironside paused, but the pattern tells a different story. Bite stepped forward. 29. IT specialist. Youngest patched member. 3 formal complaints filed against Hastings in the past 5 years, Bite said. All dismissed by the medical board. Want to guess who voted to dismiss them? Hastings, someone said. Every single time. He votes on his own cases. Bite pulled up hospital records. Staff turnover under Hastings is the highest in the region. In 15 years as chief, 7 nurses lost their licenses after mistakes Hastings blamed on them. 2 residents had careers destroyed. Doc spoke next. Vietnam medic, 63 years carrying knowledge from field hospitals. I talked to 4 former hospital staff. Off record, same story every time. Doc's voice was flat, controlled. Hastings makes mistakes, blames subordinates, uses his credentials, Army colonel, medical chief, board member, to be believed. Who are you going to trust? Him or the nurse with 2 years' experience? Rick listened, arms crossed, jaw tight. Sarah mentioned a patient, Rick said. Mark Brennan. Ironside nodded, pulled up a file. October 14th, 2021. Mark Brennan, 54, construction foreman. Came to ER at 11:30 p.m. with chest pain. Dr. Hastings diagnosed anxiety attack. Sent him home with Ativan. Mark died 6 hours later. Massive coronary, family sued, hospital settled for $850,000. He pulled up Sarah's nursing notes. But look at this. Sarah documented everything. Patient vitals, blood pressure 168/104, diaphoresis, pain radiating to left arm, classic MI presentation. She wrote, and I quote, nursing assessment suggests cardiac event. Recommend EKG and troponin levels. Hastings overruled her, Doc said. Never ran the EKG, never ordered blood work, sent a man having a heart attack home with anxiety medication. The room was silent. Then Hastings altered the medical records, Bite said, after the lawsuit was filed, changed Sarah's notes to make it look like she told him the patient was anxious, fabricated documentation, then testified to the medical board that Sarah appeared impaired on duty, said she smelled of alcohol, was slurring words. Was she? Hammer asked. No? Doc's voice was hard. I talked to 3 nurses who worked that shift. Sarah was sober, sharp, did everything by protocol. Hastings lied under oath to destroy her. Rick's hands curled into fists. There's more, Ironside said quietly. Sarah's not the first victim. He pulled up 3 new files. Lieutenant Jessica Ramirez, Army Nurse Corps, served under Hastings in Iraq 2008 to 2009. During a combat casualty surgery, Hastings clamped the wrong artery. Patient bled out. Hastings blamed Ramirez, said she handed him the wrong instrument. She was court-martialed, dishonorably discharged, case sealed under military law. Ironside's voice didn't change, but the weight in the room did. Jessica Ramirez now works as a home health aide in Amarillo, Texas, makes $14 an hour, has a dishonorable discharge on her record, can't get nursing jobs, can't use her GI Bill, can't get VA benefits. Second file. Dr. Michael Chen, ER resident at Traverse City Memorial, 2017 to 2018. Caught Hastings falsifying billing codes, upcoding procedures for higher reimbursement, Medicare fraud. Chen reported it to hospital administration. Ironside paused. Hastings accused Chen of stealing medications, planted evidence in Chen's locker. Chen's residency was terminated. He works at an urgent care clinic in Reno now. The black mark on his record prevents him from getting hospital positions. He'll never be a full emergency physician. Third file. Nurse Amanda Sullivan, senior ER nurse. 2019 to 2020. Witnessed Hastings verbally abusing a patient, homeless veteran with PTSD. Sullivan reported him to HR. Hastings claimed Sullivan was stealing narcotics. Fabricated documentation showing missing doses on her shifts. Sullivan was fired, investigated by the DEA for 14 months. Was she cleared? Someone asked. Yes, but the damage was done. She took a job in Michigan's Upper Peninsula at 60% of her previous salary, moved 300 miles away to escape the stigma. The room was dead silent. 4 victims, Rick said, that we know about. 4 victims in 24 hours of searching, Ironside corrected. There are probably more. Hastings has been doing this for at least 16 years. Teach spoke from the back. Former high school counselor. Knew how to talk to trauma survivors. I spent 6 hours with Sarah yesterday, Teach said. Helped her document everything. Dates, times, conversations. She's been keeping a journal, writing down details so she wouldn't forget if she ever got a chance to fight back. He held up a notebook. Water-stained. Pages worn. She's been carrying this for 3 years. Everything that happened. Everyone who failed her. Teach opened to a marked page. She also recorded something. 3 weeks ago. Conversation between Hastings and the hospital board chair. Every head turned. Teach connected his phone to the speakers. Hit play. The audio was scratchy, low quality, but audible. A man's voice. David, the Brennan family attorney is still asking questions. They want to reopen the case, saying new evidence suggests the nurse's notes were accurate. Dr. Hastings' voice came through. Smooth, confident, dismissive. Greg, that case is sealed. The settlement agreement is ironclad. Bennett signed away her rights. Even if her notes were accurate, which I dispute, she has no standing to sue. Pause. Sound of footsteps. Another voice. But if the medical board reviews it... Hastings laughed. The sound made several brothers flinch. Greg, I am the medical board. I vote on licensing complaints. You think I'd vote to exonerate someone I personally testified against? My credibility is on the line. Silence on the recording. Besides, Hastings continued, Bennett is homeless now. I saw her digging in the dumpster behind Arby's last month. No lawyer will take her case. She's what you called her, a non-credible witness. Exactly. The system worked. And if she tries to go public? Who's going to believe a homeless woman with a revoked nursing license over a decorated Army colonel and chief of emergency medicine? This isn't complicated. I protected the hospital. I protected my career. I removed a problematic employee. Everyone wins. Pause. Well, everyone who matters. The recording ended. The silence in the room was crushing. Then Hammer spoke, voice low. Dangerous. He called her a non-credible witness, after he destroyed her life, after he made her homeless, after he took everything. He systematically destroyed 4 people we can prove, Ironside said, used his authority, his credentials, his position on the medical board to bury complaints, to frame subordinates, to cover his mistakes. Rick looked around the room. At 97 men who'd given up 24 hours to investigate a woman they'd never met. County Medical Board meets Friday morning, Ironside said. Public meeting. We show up with evidence, with witnesses, with that recording. We force them to reopen Sarah's case. They'll try to shut us down, someone said. That's why all 97 of us are going to be there, Rick said. Clean clothes, no cuts, business casual. We sit quietly. We present evidence. We let the system work. Bite raised his hand. And if the system doesn't work? Rick's smile was cold. Then every news station in Michigan gets copies of everything by Friday afternoon. Channel 7, Channel 9, Detroit Free Press, Bridge Magazine. We blow this so wide that the medical board has to act or face public outrage. Can you find the previous victims? Rick asked Ironside. Get them to testify? Already done. Jessica Ramirez is flying in from Texas tomorrow. Lands at Detroit Metro at 6 p.m. Michael Chen is driving from Nevada. Amanda Sullivan is 2 hours north in Sault Ste. Marie. All 3 agreed to testify. Witnesses from the beach? Rick asked. Teach pulled out his notes. I collected 4 statements yesterday, door to door around North Point Beach. He read from the first page. Patricia Holbrook, age 52, high school biology teacher at Traverse City West, lives 3 blocks from the beach. She was walking her golden retriever when Jake fell through. 60 feet away. She heard the ice crack, saw Jake go under. Teach looked up. She called 911 at 2:49 p.m., 2 minutes after Jake went into the water. That's documented on the 911 recordings. She also started recording video on her phone. She submitted the video to news stations the next day. His voice hardened. Mrs. Holbrook taught Jake in 9th grade biology 3 years ago. She recognized him, knew his name, watched a 14-year-old kid she'd taught drown while she recorded it for Channel 9 News. Someone cursed quietly. Teach continued to the second statement. Frank Kowalski, age 38, Marina Maintenance Supervisor at Clinch Park Marina, adjacent to the beach, former volunteer firefighter. Certification lapsed 3 years ago, but he's still trained in water rescue. Teach read Kowalski's quote. I saw the thin ice warning signs were down. They'd blown over in the storm the night before. I watched Jake Morrison walk onto the ice. I was going to go tell that kid to get off, but my shift was ending in 10 minutes. I figured someone else would say something. Then I heard the ice crack. Teach looked around the room. Frank Kowalski stood on the marina dock 90 feet from where Jake went under. He had rescue rope in the equipment shed. He had flotation rings. He had everything needed for ice rescue. The shed was 200 feet away. He never moved. Third statement. David Torres, age 29, county paramedic, off duty that day, ice fishing 200 feet from shore, trained in ice rescue, certified in cold water emergency response. Teach read Torres's statement word for word. I'm off duty. I don't have my gear. Ice rescue requires specialized equipment. I could have died too. I did what I was supposed to do. I called 911 and waited for the rescue team. Teach set the paper down. David Torres is a trained paramedic. He's responded to 3 ice rescue calls in his career. He knows the protocols. He stood on the ice with fishing equipment and watched Jake die. Then watched Sarah, who had no training, no equipment, and was hypothermic from living in a car, do what he was trained to do. The fourth statement. Monica Chen, age 41, insurance claims processor, lives on Lakeshore Drive with her husband and 2 daughters. Teach's voice softened. Monica used to babysit Jake Morrison when he was 8 to 10 years old, before his mother, Rebecca, got sick. Monica knew Jake, knew his mom, recognized him on the ice that day. He read her statement. I saw Jake crawling toward open water. I recognized him even from the parking lot. I started running toward the beach. My husband grabbed my arm. He said, "That's not our problem, Monica. We have our own kids to think about." So I stopped. I got out my binoculars. And I watched. Teach looked up, met Rick's eyes. Monica Chen watched through binoculars from her car, while Jake Morrison, a boy she used to make sandwiches for, a boy whose mother she'd prayed with during chemotherapy, drowned 40 feet from shore. She submitted this statement with tears running down her face. She said, I knew Rebecca. I watched her son die while I stood there like a statue. The room held its breath. Rick spoke, voice low, controlled. 40 people stood on that beach, phones in their hands, recording, calling 911, waiting for someone else to act. My son was clinically dead for 4 minutes because not one of them had the courage Sarah did. Hammer stood. Club elder, voice of wisdom. Medical board meets Friday, 9 a.m., County Administrative Building. We show up, all 97 of us. We present evidence. We demand they reopen Sarah's case and investigate Hastings. Not a protest, Rick emphasized. A peaceful assembly. We're there to bear witness, to make sure they can't sweep this under the rug the way they did 4 times before. What about Sarah? Doc asked. She stays away from the meeting, Rick said. If she's there, Hastings' lawyer claims intimidation. We do this without her. Get her license back. Get Hastings investigated. Then we bring her home." Hammer looked around. "All in favor of full mobilization Friday morning?" The room went quiet. 97 men, all wearing their cuts, all waiting. For exactly 3 seconds, nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic outside. Then every single hand went up. Not one hesitation. Not one dissent. 97 men voting unanimously to help a 24-year-old woman they'd never met. Because she saved one of their own. Because blood debt is sacred. Because protecting people the system failed is what brotherhood means. Friday morning, January 31st, 8:50 a.m. The county administrative building parking lot was empty when the first motorcycles arrived. Then the rumble started. Low at first, distant, like thunder rolling across frozen ground. Then it grew into a roar, 4 by 4. Tight formation. 97 Harley-Davidsons pulled into the lot. Riders wore jeans, button-down shirts, clean boots. No cuts, no patches. Just men who'd coordinated across 4 chapters to arrive at exactly 8:55 a.m. They parked in perfect rows, military precision, engines cutting off in sequence until the parking lot fell silent. The sudden quiet after all that noise felt heavy, expectant. 97 men walked toward the building. No shouting, no signs, no aggression. Just quiet, disciplined movement. Inside, the county medical board sat at the front table. 5 members. Dr. Gregory Marsh, board chair, cardiologist. Dr. Patricia Vance, pediatrician. Dr. Kenneth Liu, surgeon. Dr. Amanda Foster, family medicine. And Dr. David Lawrence Hastings, second from the left, reviewing papers, confident. He looked up when the doors opened, and kept looking as 97 men filed into the public seating area, filling every chair, lining the back wall, standing along the sides, silent, watching. Hastings' face went from tan to pale in 3 seconds. Dr. Marsh cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses. "This is a public meeting, but we ask that all attendees maintain decorum and—" "We're here to observe," Ironside said from the front row, "and to present evidence during the public comment period, Dr." Marsh looked at the crowd, at Hastings, back at his agenda. "Very well. This meeting of the County Medical Board is called to order." Routine business took 40 minutes. Budget approvals, licensing renewals, protocol updates. Hastings kept glancing at the silent crowd, sweat visible on his forehead despite the air conditioning. At 9:42 a.m., Dr. Marsh announced, "We now open the floor for public comment. Each speaker has 3 minutes." Ironside stood, walked to the podium, set down a thick folder. "Marcus Webb, 22 years Detroit Police Department, Homicide Division, retired detective. I'm here regarding the case of Sarah Elizabeth Bennett, RN. License revoked March 18, 2022, following testimony from Dr. David Hastings." Hastings sat perfectly still, face blank. Ms. Bennett was held responsible for the wrongful death of Mark Anthony Brennan, who died October 14, 2021, from a massive myocardial infarction that Dr. Hastings failed to diagnose. The hospital settled the wrongful death lawsuit for $850,000. The settlement agreement specifically named Ms. Bennett as the negligent party. Ironside opened the folder. "However, I have Ms. Bennett's original nursing notes from that shift, time-stamped, documented in the electronic medical record system. She performed a full cardiac assessment on Mr. Brennan. She documented elevated blood pressure of 168/104, diaphoresis, pain radiating to the left arm, and she wrote, I'm reading verbatim, nursing assessment suggests cardiac event. Recommend EKG and troponin levels. He slid the printed notes across the table to Dr. Marsh. Dr. Hastings overruled that recommendation. No EKG was performed. No cardiac enzymes were drawn. Mr. Brennan was diagnosed with an anxiety attack and sent home with Ativan. He died 6 hours later. Dr. Marsh was reading the documents, his expression darkening with each line. Furthermore, Ironside continued, Dr. Hastings testified to this board that Ms. Bennett appeared impaired on duty that night. He stated that she smelled of alcohol and was slurring her words. I have sworn affidavits from 3 nurses who worked that same shift. He laid out 3 more documents. Nurse Jennifer Parks, Nurse Michael Thompson, Nurse Rebecca Stein. All 3 state that Sarah Bennett was completely sober, alert, professional, performed her duties flawlessly. Someone on the board shifted uncomfortably. I'm also presenting evidence of a pattern, Ironside said. 3 previous cases where Dr. Hastings blamed subordinates for his own errors. He laid out 3 files, each one color-coded. Lieutenant Jessica Ramirez, dishonorably discharged from the Army in 2009 after Dr. Hastings blamed her for his surgical error during combat operations. Dr. Michael Chen, residency terminated in 2018 after he discovered Dr. Hastings falsifying billing codes. Nurse Amanda Sullivan, fired in 2020 after she reported Dr. Hastings for verbally abusing a patient. Dr. Marsh was no longer reading. He was staring at Hastings. These allegations are serious, Dr. Marsh said slowly. But this is, I have sworn testimony from all 3 victims, Ironside interrupted. All 3 are here today, in this room, ready to testify under oath. From the crowd, 3 people stood, a woman in her 50s, Hispanic, wearing a Target employee vest. Jessica Ramirez, a young man in a button-down shirt, Asian American, glasses. Michael Chen, a woman in her 40s, blonde, nurse's scrubs visible under her jacket. Amanda Sullivan. Hastings' face went white. Finally, Ironside said, I have a recording. 3 weeks old. A conversation between Dr. Hastings and Dr. Gregory Marsh, that's you, sir, discussing Sarah Bennett's case. Dr. Marsh's eyes widened. Ironside connected his phone to the room's speaker system. Hit play. Dr. Hastings' voice filled the room. Clear, confident, damning. Greg, that case is sealed. Bennett signed away her rights. Even if her notes were accurate, which I dispute, she has no standing. But if the medical board reviews it, Hastings laughed on the recording. Several board members flinched. I am the medical board. I vote on licensing complaints. You think I'd vote to exonerate someone I personally testified against? My credibility is on the line. Pause. Besides, Bennett is homeless now. I saw her digging in a dumpster last month. No lawyer will take her case. She's a non-credible witness. The system worked, Greg. And if she tries to go public? Who's going to believe a homeless woman with a revoked nursing license over a decorated Army colonel and chief of emergency medicine? I protected the hospital. I protected my career. I removed a problematic employee. Everyone wins. Everyone who matters. The recording ended. The silence lasted exactly 7 seconds. Then Dr. Marsh spoke, voice shaking. Dr. Hastings, you are hereby suspended from this board, effective immediately, pending a full investigation into these allegations. This meeting is adjourned until— You can't suspend me, Hastings said. Standing. I have rights. I have— "Sit down, David," Dr. Marsh said, "or I will have security remove you." Hastings looked at the 97 men sitting in perfect silence. At Ironside, standing at the podium. At the 3 previous victims still standing. He sat down. Dr. Marsh looked at the crowd. At Ironside. "The board will review all evidence presented here today. We will reconvene in 72 hours with a decision on whether to reopen Sarah Bennett's case. We will also be forwarding these materials to the county prosecutor's office for review of potential criminal charges." Ironside nodded. "Thank you." He returned to his seat. 97 men stood as one, filed out as quietly as they'd entered. Not one word spoken. But the message was clear. "We'll be watching." That afternoon, 2 Traverse City police detectives arrived at 4782 Bayshore Drive. White colonial. 2 stories. Manicured lawn, even in winter. American flag by the front door. Property records showed purchase price, $780,000. Dr. David Hastings was in his garage. Saturday afternoon. Working on his boat motor. Grease on his hands. Reading glasses perched on his nose. Whistling while he adjusted a carburetor. The same hands that had signed documents destroying 4 people's careers. Detective Sarah Vance knocked on the open garage door. Hastings looked up, mildly annoyed, like someone had interrupted his weekend hobby. "Dr. Hastings?" "Yes?" "Detective Vance, Traverse City Police. Detective Morrison." She gestured to her partner. "You're under arrest for fraud, falsifying medical records, and perjury before the county medical board." Hastings's wrench clattered to the concrete floor. "What? This is ridiculous. I have rights. I want my attorney. "You'll have the right to contact your attorney after booking," Detective Vance said. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." They read him his rights right there in his garage, in front of his neighbors who'd come out to watch. Hands cuffed behind his back. Face pressed against the hood of his $94,000 Tesla Model S license plate. Dochart. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Hastings was processed at the county jail within 2 hours. Mugshot taken. Fingerprints. DNA swab. Charges filed officially by 6 p.m. Felony fraud, altering medical records. Falsifying medical records, 3 counts. Perjury before county medical board, 2 counts. Grand theft, fraudulent billing codes, $47,000 estimated. Witness tampering, threatening previous victims. Bail hearing scheduled for Monday morning. Prosecutor recommended $250,000 bail. For a man who'd stolen careers and livelihoods, it felt inadequate, but it was a start. Monday morning, the county medical board held an emergency session. Vote to reopen Sarah Bennett's case. 4-0. Hastings recused, suspended. Tuesday, they reviewed all evidence. Sarah's original nursing notes. The 3 nurses' affidavits. Medical expert testimony that Sarah's assessment was correct and Hastings's diagnosis was negligent. Wednesday, they voted. Sarah Elizabeth Bennett's nursing license, fully reinstated. All disciplinary actions expunged from her record. Official apology issued. Thursday, Hastings' attorney approached the prosecutor about a plea deal. The evidence was overwhelming. Hastings couldn't win at trial. Friday, he took the deal. 8 years in state prison. No eligibility for parole for 5 years. Medical license permanently revoked in Michigan and nationally. Restitution of $127,000 to previous victims. Judge Maria Costello delivered the sentence with words that would be quoted in every news article. Dr. Hastings, you were entrusted with the power to heal, and instead, You wielded it as a weapon. You destroyed careers to protect your ego. You victimized the vulnerable to maintain your status. You manipulated a system designed to protect patients and used it to harm the very people who tried to hold you accountable. 8 years is the maximum this court can impose. I only wish it could be more. Hastings was led out in handcuffs, heading to Lebanon Correctional Institution, 2 hours from Traverse City, far enough that he'd never accidentally encounter any of his victims. The week after sentencing, Rick pulled his truck into Lakeshore Apartments, Unit 3B, ground floor, 1 bedroom. Sarah stood on the sidewalk, staring at the building like it might disappear. Same look she'd had when they told her about her license, like good things couldn't possibly be real. "Keys in your name," Rick said, getting out of the truck. "Rent paid for 6 months. Hell's Angels chapters across Michigan raised $42,000. Rent, deposits, furniture, food, everything." Sarah's hands shook. "I can't accept." "You already did. The lease is signed. Furniture gets delivered tomorrow. You have a home, Sarah." She looked at him, eyes wet. "Why are you doing this?" Rick thought about how to answer. About Jake in that hospital bed. About this young woman who'd gone into freezing water when 40 people watched. "You saved my son," he said simply. "Blood debt gets repaid. This is us repaying." He handed her the key. First key to a home she'd held in 1,095 days. Sarah's fingers closed around it. She started crying, right there on the sidewalk. Rick gave her space. Didn't try to hug her. Didn't try to fix it. Just let her cry. After a few minutes, she wiped her face. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You did the impossible. We're just making sure you don't have to do it alone anymore." Doc handled medical coordination, got Sarah an appointment with Dr. Ellen Rodriguez, the family physician who'd replaced Hastings as chief of emergency medicine. "Frostbite on your fingers is healed," Dr. Rodriguez said during the exam. "You'll have nerve sensitivity for another 6 months. Cold will bother you more than it used to, but no permanent damage." She wrote 3 referrals. Physical therapy for the frostbite recovery. Insurance would cover it. Sarah qualified for Medicaid now that she had an address. Trauma therapy with Dr. Kevin Park. Twice weekly. Non-negotiable. And a 3rd referral Dr. Rodriguez handed over with a smile. "Traverse City Medical Center is hiring ER nurses. I'm on the hiring committee. Your license is reinstated. Your experience speaks for itself. You saved a drowning victim with field medicine most ER nurses couldn't perform." Sarah stared at the paper. "I haven't worked in 3 years." "You never stopped being a nurse. You just stopped getting paid for it." Dr. Rodriguez met her eyes. "You're ready. Trust me." Teach drove Sarah to her first therapy appointment, sat in the waiting room reading a car magazine while she spent 50 minutes with Dr. Kevin Park. "Tell me about the ice," Dr. Park said. Sarah told him. About the crowd, the phones, the 40 people who didn't move, about going into the water, about 11 minutes giving her warmth to a stranger. "Why did you go in?" Dr. Park asked. Sarah thought about it. "Because no one else did. You were starving, hypothermic from living in a car. You had every reason to walk away. I was a medic. Medics don't walk away." Dr. Park leaned forward. "Sarah, you performed CPR and hypothermic rewarming for 11 minutes while dying of cold exposure yourself. That's not the action of someone broken. That's someone who never stopped being what they were trained to be." Sarah cried for the first time since the ice broke. Dr. Park handed her tissues. 3 years of homelessness. 3 years of being invisible. But you never forgot who you were. They took your license. They didn't take your skills. They didn't take you. After the session, Teach drove her to the grocery store, helped her pick out food for a full week, showed her how to make a shopping list on her phone, how to use coupons, how to budget. You're allowed to plan for next month now, Teach said, loading bags into her apartment. You're allowed to believe tomorrow's coming. Sarah stood in her kitchen, with groceries on the counter, and started crying again. Teach pretended not to notice, just kept unpacking. Bite handled the practical logistics, set up her bank account, the one that had been frozen for 2 years when she couldn't maintain a minimum balance. Got her a new phone. iPhone 13. Not the newest model, but leagues beyond her cracked iPhone 7. Helped her create a resume that made her look like the capable professional she was, not the homeless woman she'd been forced to become. Put this at the top, Bite said. January 27th, 2025. Performed emergency ice rescue and hypothermic rewarming that saved a minor from cardiac arrest when first responders were 11 minutes from scene. Sarah applied to Traverse City Medical Center on Tuesday. Got a call for interview on Wednesday. Interview was Thursday morning. The nurse manager, Patricia Wells, recognized Sarah's name immediately. You're the woman who saved Jake Morrison. I did my job. Your job ended 3 years ago when you lost your license. You saved that boy as a private citizen with no equipment and hypothermia yourself. Patricia pulled up Sarah's file. Dr. Rodriguez recommended you personally. Your license is reinstated. Your references from before 2022 are excellent. When can you start? Sarah blinked. I got the job? You got the job. ER nurse, second shift. Starting salary $68,000. You start orientation Monday if you're ready. Sarah thought about the Honda Civic she'd lived in for 1,095 days. About the library where she'd spent every day reading journals she couldn't use. About the cold that never ended. I'm ready. Ironside made sure legal protections were airtight. Restraining order against Hastings filed and approved. 500 feet minimum distance. Not that he'd be free anytime soon. Documentation of all previous threats on record with the prosecutor's office. Witness protection protocols in case any of Hastings' allies decided to retaliate. He's in prison for 8 years minimum, Ironside said, walking Sarah through the paperwork in her new apartment. But men like him have friends. You see anything suspicious, anything, you call me. Day or night. He gave her his direct number, programmed into her new phone. Sarah signed the paperwork with hands that didn't shake anymore. Jake came home from the hospital after 6 days. Full recovery. No brain damage, no lung damage, no permanent effects from 4 minutes underwater and 80-degree core temperature. He'd been lucky in ways that shouldn't have required luck. Rick sat him down that evening. Living room. Just the two of them. I need you to understand something, Rick said. You almost died because I wasn't there. Because I was at the clubhouse while you were on thin ice trying to get your mother's medallion. Jake looked down. Guilt written all over his face. I'm sorry, I dropped it and I couldn't let it go. It was Mom's. I know. But Jake, your mom wouldn't want you dead trying to retrieve a piece of metal. She'd want you alive. Everyone just stood there, Dad. Jake's voice cracked. All those people. They just filmed. I know. Except her. Sarah. She went in. Rick nodded. She went in when 40 people were too afraid. She gave you her body heat when she was dying from cold herself. She saved your life. Can I meet her? Thank her? Soon. She's getting settled. She's been through a lot. But soon. 7 months later, August 15th, 2025, Saturday afternoon. The Hells Angels Traverse City Clubhouse was decorated for the annual summer cookout. Banners, string lights, picnic tables covered in red and white checkered cloths. 200 people scattered across the lot. Club members, families, friends. Kids running around with sparklers even though it was still daylight. Music playing from speakers. 3 grills loaded with burgers, ribs, corn on the cob. Sarah Bennett stood near the fence talking with Doc about a trauma case from her shift last week. Motorcycle accident. Critical injuries. She'd stabilized the patient until MedFlight arrived. She looked different. Healthy. Hair clean and styled in a neat ponytail. Color in her face. Actual color, not the gray-white of malnutrition. 43 pounds heavier than the woman who'd crawled from frozen water 7 months ago. She wore jeans that fit, a Traverse City Medical Center t-shirt, sneakers that weren't held together with duct tape. Looked 24. Finally looked her age. Jake Morrison walked up with his dad. The teenager had grown 3 inches over summer, filled out from hockey conditioning, wearing his number 19 jersey with pride. His team had made regionals. "Ms. Bennett," Jake said. Sarah turned, smiled. "Jake? Hey, you can call me Sarah." "Sarah." He swallowed. "I wanted to thank you. I know I sent that card in March, but I wanted to say it in person. You saved my life." "You already did thank me. The card was beautiful." "I know, but—" Jake looked at his dad. Rick nodded encouragement. "You went into the water when everyone else just watched. You almost died keeping me warm, and I don't know how to say thank you for that." Sarah put a hand on his shoulder. "You're alive. You're healthy. You're playing hockey again. You're happy. That's all the thanks I need." Rick stepped forward holding a wooden plaque. "We wanted to give you something," he said. "From all of us. From the Brotherhood." He handed it to her. Mounted on the plaque was Sarah's Army Medic badge. The bronze one she'd pinned to her pocket, thinking she was going to die. Rick had retrieved it from the ice after the rescue, had it professionally cleaned, preserved under glass. Below the badge, an engraved inscription. "Heroism isn't rank or title. It's action when no one else will move. Hells Angels MC, Northern Michigan, January 27th, 2025. Sarah stared at it. At the badge that had defined her for 6 years. That she'd carried through basic training, nursing school, her job, and 1,095 days of homelessness. Her vision blurred. "We also wanted to tell you what's happened since," Rick said. He counted on his fingers. "The hospital fired 3 administrators who ignored complaints about Hastings. County Medical Board implemented new policies. No member can vote on cases involving their own testimony. Amanda Sullivan got her job back at Traverse City Memorial with full back pay and a formal apology. Michael Chen was offered a residency position in Detroit. Jessica Ramirez is working with military advocacy groups to get her discharge status reviewed." He paused. "And the bystander intervention training program you designed with Teach? The one where you talk to high school students about recognizing when someone needs help? 17 school districts across Michigan adopted it, teaching kids that filming isn't helping. That courage means acting even when you're scared." Sarah held the plaque against her chest. "I didn't do anything special. I just couldn't watch someone die." Hammer walked up. Rick's uncle, club elder, beer in hand. "That's exactly what made it special," Hammer said. 40 people could watch. You couldn't. That's the difference between existing and living. Doc raised his glass. "To Sarah Bennett." The woman who reminded us that heroes don't wait for permission. 200 voices echoed. To Sarah! She laughed through tears. The first real laugh in 4 years. But this story isn't really about one woman's courage on a frozen beach. It's not about a corrupt doctor finally facing consequences. It's not even about 97 bikers showing up to demand justice. It's about the 40 people who stood on that shore with phones in their hands. The teacher who recognized her student and chose recording over rescue. The paramedic trained in ice rescue who chose safety over risk. The marina worker who had equipment and chose convenience over action. The mother who knew the boy and chose comfort over courage. 40 people made a decision that day. They decided someone else would handle it, that professionals were coming, that it wasn't their responsibility. And a 17-year-old boy died for 4 minutes while they watched. Sarah Bennett made a different decision. She decided that waiting was the same as killing, that inaction was a choice, that courage meant moving when your hands were shaking and your brain was screaming to stop. She wasn't stronger than those 40 people, wasn't braver. She was 24 years old, homeless, starving, had nothing left to risk except a life she wasn't sure was worth living anymore. But she moved anyway. And that movement changed everything. Here's what you need to understand. There are Sarah Bennetts everywhere. Young people destroyed by systems protecting the powerful. People living in cars and shelters while those who wronged them sleep in expensive houses. And most of the time, we don't see them, because seeing them means acknowledging our own comfort, our own privilege, our own fear. Sarah had been invisible for 1,095 days. Then she saved a life, and 97 people refused to let her disappear again. Here's what you can do, right now. Today. First, pay attention. Notice when someone's losing weight they can't afford to lose. Ask why when a good employee suddenly disappears. Question stories that seem too perfect. Second, ask uncomfortable questions. Are you okay? Is a start. What really happened? Is better. I believe you is sometimes all someone needs to hear. Third, call the hotline. Child abuse, 1-800-422-4453. Domestic violence, 1-800-799-7233. Workplace retaliation, OSHA hotline, your state labor board. If something feels wrong, report it. You can be wrong about abuse. You can't be wrong and silent. Fourth, listen when someone's voice shakes. When someone tells you something impossible, that a decorated doctor lied, that a respected community member is abusive, that the official story is wrong, listen. Actually listen. Fifth, be willing to be the only one. Sarah went into that water alone. You might have to make the call alone. File the report alone. Believe the victim alone. Do it anyway. Because here's the truth. The next Sarah Bennett might be in your town. The next Jake Morrison might be at your local beach. The next 40 bystanders might include you. And when that moment comes, you have a choice. Will you film? Or will you move? 7 months after that frozen January day, Sarah Bennett works night shifts in the ER at Traverse City Medical Center. Saves lives the way she always knew how. She keeps the plaque on her apartment wall, right next to her reinstated nursing license and her staff ID badge. The Army medic badge catches morning light every day she wakes up. Some days, when the ER is overwhelming and the weight of 3 years on the street tries to drag her back, she touches that badge and remembers. She went into the water when no one else would. She refused to be invisible. She saved a life. and 97 brothers made sure she got hers back. Jake Morrison plays center for Traverse City West High School. Made varsity this year. Volunteers every Saturday teaching CPR to middle schoolers through the Bystander Intervention Program. He wears his mother's St. Christopher medallion. Rick had it restored and put on a new chain. Wears it every game. And when people ask about the scar on his hand from the frostbite, he tells them about the woman who saved him, about the 40 people who watched, about the choice between filming and moving. Dr. David Hastings sits in an 8x10 cell at Lebanon Correctional Institution. Learning what it feels like when the system you manipulated finally works the way it was designed to work. Not through violence, not through chaos, through evidence, through witnesses, through people who refused to let injustice stand unchallenged. Sarah doesn't hate him anymore. She told her therapist that last month. She just feels sorry for him. Sorry that he was so afraid of being wrong that he destroyed 4 people rather than admit one mistake. That's what fear does. It turns you into someone who watches instead of acts, someone who protects reputation over truth, someone who films instead of helps. Courage is the opposite of that. Courage looks like a 24-year-old woman who had every reason to walk away and didn't. If this story moved you, subscribe to this channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear that protective people still exist. Comment below. Tell us where you're watching from. Tell us about a time someone helped when everyone else looked away. Or tell us what you wish someone had done when you needed help. Because these stories matter. Not for the algorithm. Not for the views, but because somewhere right now, there's another Sarah sitting outside another library, wondering if anyone will ever see her, if anyone will ever fight for her, if she matters enough to be saved. She does. You do. We all do. And sometimes all it takes is one person choosing to move instead of film, to act instead of watch, to be the one who doesn't walk away. The ice doesn't crack beneath Sarah's feet anymore. The cold doesn't burn. The lips that turned blue in -12 degrees now smile at patients and colleagues and friends who see her as exactly what she is. A hero who never stopped being a medic, even when the world said she wasn't.